Good morning, Year 10. Welcome to week 1 of this summer term, and this is the lesson for this week. Please have some paper or a Word document ready to put your work into. If you've got paper or otherwise your history book, then write this as your title, Anglo Saxon Review and Recap 1, or type that into a Word document. And then the connect task, as you can see here, for each of these words, tick the correct column. So if you want to draw it as a table, you can, or just write the correct answer. So for example, the first word, thane, is would you find a thane in Anglo-Saxon England, in Norman England, or in both? So the correct answer for that one is Anglo-Saxon England. So if you're drawing a table, then you would just put a tick in Anglo-Saxon England, or if you want to just write the word thane and then next to it, just write the word Anglo-Saxon. Okay, so pause the video and have a go at those tasks. For the rest of this lesson, you will need to be able to access the history textbooks that we use at school, and you can access these online. So you need to follow the instructions on this slide. You need to go to their website, pearsonactivelearn.com. You need to use your school login as your username, so that would go in that top space there, and then Sedgehill64, you need to start Sedgehill with a capital letter as your password. So again, pause the video, open a new tab and go to that website and log in. What you will see is that the history textbooks are available. If you click on the big icon that says history, and then you'll find the Anglo-Saxon one. The medicine one is also there, so if you want to have a look at that, you can, if you're doing some other revision. But otherwise, once you click on the book, it then opens a new window and you'll be able to scroll through. You can zoom in using the button at the bottom, and you'll be able to should be able to read it more clearly. So again, pause the video, make sure that you can access and you can find that textbook so you can use it through the rest of the video to help you with the work. Okay, first subheading then, Anglo-Saxon society. So we're looking at England before 1066. Remember, our work with this unit is looking at the impact of the Norman conquest and how much of a change it made to England. So first thing to do, copy the diagram. This is an Anglo-Saxon shield, that's why it's a slightly odd shape. Copy the diagram showing the slaves, the peasants and the thanes. And then on page 9 in the textbooks, this is where you can access it. Page 9 in the textbook, there's information about each of those. So for example, what percentage of the population do each of these make up, or what their role is in society. So have a look in the textbook, and around the diagram or next to it, add some notes. We did do this right back at the beginning of September, so if you've got your exercise book, you'll find this in there. So have a go at that. Again, pause the video, look on page 9 in the textbook, and then you can have a look at those 3 groups. Okay, next task, copying and completing. So this is about earls now. Copy the sentences below, filling in the gaps from your knowledge. This is mostly taken from page 10 of the textbook. So if you need to, you can look there to fill this in. So earls were the most important somethings, the most important men in the country after the relationship between them was based on the earls competed to be the most important, so that would give them the greatest rewards, and sometimes earls challenged the king to get more. Earls ruled areas called, and in 1060 there were only, and then you need a number in there, something of these. So again, pause the video, copying down those sentences, filling in the gaps from your knowledge or using the textbook. You've seen this diagram before, so this is similar to the one we've done already in the sense that it shows the thanes, the peasants and the slaves, but this one is showing us how society was not fixed. People could move up and down, so slaves could be freed and free peasants could sell themselves into slavery. You don't need to copy this diagram. If you want to, you can, but do please have a go at this exam style question. Describe 2 features of the social system of Anglo-Saxon England. So pause the video and you're writing there, remembering to write about a detail, then a feature, a second detail, a second feature, second example, and then a description of it. Okay, new subheading, the power of Anglo-Saxon kings. This illustration here is taken from the textbook on page 11. So if you can't read it very well on here, then again have a look in your textbook. Answer the questions on the next slide. So this is all about how powerful the monarch or the king in Anglo-Saxon England was. Here are the questions, so you can try and do this sort of testing yourself without looking, or if you need to write the answers, either write the question then write the answer, or write them in full sentences please. So 3 examples of the things kings controlled, you would need to say the king, Anglo-Saxon kings controlled, and then write down your 3 examples. So full sentences or write out the question. So pause the video and answer those questions. Okay. So that slide was thinking about generally the power of Anglo-Saxon kings. What we're going to do on this slide is think about Edward the Confessor himself. So that he was the king in the 1060s before the Norman conquest. So how powerful was he? Again, we've talked about this, and it goes through this on page 11 to 12, thinking about what these pictures might show. So in terms of how strong he was, one reason that he was a strong king was because he was really religious, and you can see the king here praying, and so that was a real strength for Edward. People respected him because they knew he was a really, really religious person, and he spent a lot of time praying. In fact, he was so religious that he wanted actually to be a monk, and so he didn't sleep with his wife, which was the reason why they didn't have any children, and another reason why in the end there was a battle over the succession to the throne. But it was a strength of his kingship because people respected him. This picture we've seen before, this one is showing about how he made laws. So Edward was respected because he was a powerful lawmaker, and he kept the peace in the country. People respected him. That was a strength of Edward's. He was also strong, as we've noticed already. Anglo-Saxon kings could call up the army and the fleet of ships. So here is a picture showing how Edward was strong, because he could command the army and the troops, and we see him doing that, particularly Harold Godwinson. When Edward needs some help, Harold helps him. And a last strength that isn't really mentioned in this part of the textbook is Edward's marriage to Edith Godwinson. And that gives him strength because it means that he's married into one of the most powerful families in the country. There were some limits, though, on his power. And this map is really helping you to see that. So what you can see on this map is the Danelaw boundary. You can see it in red across the top above the word Northumbria, and coming down sort of through the middle of the country down towards London. So that whole area in the east of England was not really strongly under the king's control, or it had sort of different laws and customs and language that meant that the king's power wasn't as strong in that area. So the Danelaw is a limit on the king's power because he couldn't rule there as strongly as he ruled everywhere else. And then also he was limited because, as you can see there, you can see that the earldoms, and you can see that Wessex down in the bottom, East Anglia and Kent and Northumbria were all controlled by the Godwinson family. So that limits his power because he's got such strong earls that he can't always get done what he wants to do. So for each of these pictures, make sure you've written down a sentence or two. If you want to, you can draw your own pictures like these to help you remember. Remember the limits one, there's 2 limits. One is the Danelaw, and one is the fact that the earls are very, very powerful because they've got so much land. So pause the video while you draw or write about the strengths and the limits on Edward's power. Okay, we're nearly there. Well done. Government of England, new subheading. So this talks about it in the textbook on page 12. And this I've just copied from the textbook. There's 4 true or false statements. Make sure you read these very carefully. The Witan was a group of earls. Check that with your knowledge. Is it just earls? The Witan helped the king sort out arguments over land. Is that true or false? The Witan helped choose the next king, and the king had to follow the Witan's advice. So for each of those, copy it down if it's true, add to it if you think it needs it, or change it if you think it is incorrect. So pause the video and write those down. Powers of earls then. These again, the first box where it just says the earls, that's taken from the revision guide, which some of you have. This tells us about their power, And then the next two paragraphs on the right hand side tell us about the limits to the Earl's power. Once you've read those, so pause the video to read those, and then the last task of the lesson is this, to draw a diagram showing the power of Earls and the limits to their power. So a bit like we just had for King Edward, can you put some of these in pictures? So draw a stick man for an Earl in the middle, and we've got powers on one side and limits on the other. So again, pause the video while you do that. And then the final task, to consolidate for each of these statements, who is speaking, so which kind of person in Anglo-Saxon England would say these things. Well done. Make sure that once you have finished this work, you either take a photograph and then email it or upload it to Teams, or if it's a Word document, then you save it, please, with your name and week 1 history, and again, email it or send it via Teams to your teacher. Well done.